YouTube? Where y'all been? But anyway, I know it's been a minute since you guys seen me. I'm sorry. It's just been really, really crazy. My schedule had to change. Um, Before I started my YouTube video, I was working from home. And now I'm back in my office full time. So that just completely threw off my recording schedule. So, but anyway, I'm back. Have a new schedule, so everything is everything now. So, what y'all been up to? Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the other videos that are posted on my channel, but it's time for a new video. So here I am today. For you guys that are new to my channel, I'm So Southern, your host. For those who are returning and my true viewers, thank you so much. I am so glad that you are back and sticking and staying with me. So I want to go ahead and just jump right into today, what I got in store for you today. So in today's episode, I will be laying out a case on a criminal defense attorney that was loved by everyone, but she was found brutally murdered in her own law office. We're talking cheating accusations as well as vicious revenge rage. Let me take you back. The year 2009, February the 20th to be exact. This is the case of Chiquita Tate. Chiquita Patrice Tate, born October the 15th, 1975 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is born one of 7 children and is raised by her grandparents. Now, her siblings, as well as other family members, describe Chiquita as being a very outgoing child, very smart, intelligent person. And Chiquita actually graduated a year early from high school. And upon graduation, she decided that she wanted to go to college. Chiquita actually attended Clark University in Atlanta, Georgia, and she received her bachelor's in English. Now, once she graduated from Clark, she decided that she wanted to become a lawyer. She always had a passion to help people, and she always had this obsession with law. So law school was what she wanted to do, and she did just that. She actually moved back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and attended Southern University. And in 2004, she received her Juris Doctorate and graduated as a top student in her class. And Chiquita, when she took the bar exam for the first time, she passed. And that's impressive. That's rare and very impressive. And Chiquita, within no time, she became one of Baton Rouge's top attorneys. In 2005, Chiquita meets a man by the name of Greg Harris. He's a 34-year-old construction worker. And, he is tall, he's handsome, I can see how she, was very attracted to this man. But the funny thing is how they met. Now, they met in Baton Rouge traffic, and I don't know if, you guys know anything about Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but certain periods of the day, it gets to be, bumper to bumper traffic. And Greg actually cut Chiquita off, and she, with the personality that she has, she was just like, let me go ahead and check him about that. And that she did. But when she met up with him, it was like an instant love connection, and they fell for each other. And from that point on, they were inseparable. And, just to fast forward, I mean, they were so in love with one another that on February the 8th of 2008, they ended up getting married. And so, I mean, that was just one of the oddest ways to actually meet someone. But I mean, you never know, who you're going to meet or how you're going to meet your soulmate. So, but anyway, uh, those guys got married, and it just seemed like everything was, just perfect. They were perfect for each other, that he was actually her soulmate. Okay, let's go ahead and shift to the early morning of February the 20th. It's around 6 a.m., and the police are at Chiquita's law office, which is located in downtown Baton Rouge. The police enter the building, and everything seems to be normal. It's quiet. Nothing seems to be disturbed. There's actually no evidence of anyone even in the building. Now, Chiquita's office is located on the third floor. So, of course, the police are like, well, let's go and check the third floor to see possibly, make sure everything is safe up there as well. So they get on the elevator and they go up to the third floor, and they go down the hall to where Chiquita's office is located. The police go, they knock, they go in, and they look around, and the office is in complete disarray. There are files thrown everywhere, there are books on the floor, on all over the deck, just everywhere. It looks like a complete hurricane has come through this office. Now they look further into the office. They walk in and they discover Chiquita's body lying on the floor. And it takes all the policemen, they're just stunned at what they're looking at, because this is such a gruesome sight. Chiquita had been stabbed multiple times. Actually, she was stabbed 43 times, from her face to her chest to her abdomen. I mean, there was blood splatter on the walls. The carpet was completely blood soaked. At this point, it's like, who would have done this? Who even knew that Chiquita was even in her office working late or early that morning? Chiquita's murder was overly shocking to the Baton Rouge area. I mean, she was one of the top attorneys in that area, and a very popular attorney. My first job was, just a side note from this, my first job was an office worker for one of the top attorneys, criminal defense attorneys here in where I live. And that was one of the most interesting jobs that I had ever had. I actually enjoyed it very much. And, and now I actually work for the top police agency in the state. Talk about a flip. Imagine that. But anyway, back to the story. I mean, Chiquita's family, friends, colleagues, they just couldn't imagine who would do something like this to Chiquita. And poor Greg, her husband, he was just beside himself. The police had to just subdue him, which, understandably so. I mean, that's his wife. So, I mean, man, everybody's trying to figure out what has happened, what is going on. Everybody's stunned. As homicide detectives are collecting evidence at the scene, they notice that there is a broken fingernail that's embedded in the carpet. And they also notice that there's some hair strands, some long hair strands that are inside of Chiquita's palm, the palm of her hand. And it's obvious that the hair strands don't belong to Chiquita because Chiquita didn't have long hair. Now, at first, everyone's thinking this is a robbery that has gone bad. But further observing the actual scene, it couldn't have been a robbery because Chiquita had her expensive watch still on her wrist. She still had her diamond ring on. She still had her diamond earrings in her ear. There was also $75 cash that was still sitting on her desk. So, and then on top of that, I mean, you got the electronics that are in the office. So, if someone was actually going to rob her, they would have taken those things, right? So, they quickly ruled that out. But there was one thing that actually I saw that was odd was that Chiquita's purse was there, but all the items in her purse were dumped out on the floor. The one thing that they couldn't find was Chiquita's wallet. Chiquita had a Gucci wallet that they could not find anywhere in the office, which is odd, okay? So, I mean, the whole thing is just not adding up at all right now. So, you know what time it is. It's time to start asking some questions. Okay, so first up, we have Greg Harris, the husband. Greg tells detectives that Chiquita called him on the evening of the 19th and told him that she was going to be working late. And she asked him to bring her something from McDonald's to eat. She was hungry. So he said, no problem. And he goes to get the McDonald's and he takes it to Chiquita at the law office and they sit down and they have McDonald's. Okay. Now, while Greg was there, he stated Chiquita got a call from one of her clients stating that they were going to come by and bring her some money. So once the client got there, Greg actually went down to retrieve the money from the client. And once he retrieved the money, he went back upstairs. He took the elevator, and on his way back up, he was greeted by two attorneys that had offices in that building. So they just chatted for a while. But anyway, everything is normal. He goes back up. He gives Chiquita the money, and around 8:20, 8:30ish, Greg said that he told Chiquita he was getting ready to leave. He kissed her, told her goodbye, and he left and he went home. And that was it. So he knew that Chiquita was working that night late. But he says he went home, he went to sleep, and around 2 a.m., he woke up and he noticed that Chiquita never came home. So with Chiquita not being home around 2 a.m., Greg grows concerned and he begins to call her cell phone and he calls the office phone and she doesn't answer either phone. So he gives her a little while and he's like, oh, well, she's probably, focused because she had trial coming up. So he was like, oh, she's probably really focused. So I'll wait a little while. But as the time continued to go on and he's constantly calling and she's not answering and she's not returning any of his calls, he actually calls Chiquita's sister named Danita. Now, when he calls Danita, he's asking, had you heard from her? Or is she even over there? Or, what's going on? And Danita, she was like, no, I hadn't heard from her. And if she hadn't been home and you hadn't heard from her, then you probably need to go check on her. So after a while, I'll say, within a couple of hours, Greg decides that, okay, yeah, I need to go to the office and see what's going on, because this is actually not like Chiquita for her to not even call me back or even text me. So Greg gets in his vehicle and he drives over to Chiquita's office. He noticed, now this is around not quite 6 o'clock, but almost 6 a.m. And he drives up and he notices that Chiquita's light in her office is on the third floor. And he can't access the building because the building is locked. It's secured, so he can't get in. And that is when Greg contacted 911. He calls the police to come and check inside of the building. Now, with this, the police, they have no reason to, think that Greg is lying. I mean, he's very sincere, and he is very straightforward, and all his time frames of events actually add up. So there was really no reason or a reason to even think that he had anything to do with Chiquita's murder. He's just a husband that is grief stricken that his wife has been murdered. So we need some more questioning, right? Next up, we have Chiquita's legal assistant. Now, at her questioning, the detectives asked her, is there anyone that you could think of that would do such a crime? And the assistant tells the detectives that Chiquita had a couple of clients by the name of the Duhart brothers that were well-known bad guys in the city, and they had trial that was coming up within another week that Chiquita actually had been working with or working on. And to knowledge, those guys were guys that actually would put hits out on individuals that they wanted dead. And just so happened those guys were out on bond. The Duhart brothers. The Duhart brothers, I mean, their rap sheet is longer than I-20, okay? These guys were well-known killers. They were well-known. They just were bad guys all the way around. Now, Chiquita was actually representing these guys, okay? So with these guys on bond and everybody knowing, how these guys operate, it was a high profile case. Chiquita was in some type of danger dealing with these men. So, of course, that makes them suspects, right? So at this point, detectives are actually still concerned about Chiquita's wallet. Remember, Chiquita's wallet was not found at the crime scene. So as I'm thinking or reading this, I'm like, what does Chiquita's missing wallet have to do with anything right now? Is it even relevant to this case? Like, why are y'all even concerned about that? Y'all should be concerned about who the killer is. This woman has been stabbed over 40 times, but I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, so it's time for the Duhart brothers to come in for their questioning, but there's a problem. Now, come to find out, one of the brothers is actually in jail already. He's locked up, okay? And he's locked up on an unrelated charge because remember, they were out on bond. But one of the brothers is locked up. So, of course, that brother didn't do it, or he himself didn't do it. But that's the question, did he have someone hired to kill Chiquita? Now, the other Duhart brother was found and brought in for questioning. And he stated he didn't have anything to do with the murder of Chiquita. As a matter of fact, he was bothered by it because he said Chiquita was the only one that was able to clear he and his brother's name and set them free. So in his mind, his thought process was, why would we have her killed? She's working hard on our behalf. We need her. And I mean, when you think, that does make sense, right? During the Duhart brother questioning, the detectives get notification. It's the craziest thing. The detectives are notified that Chiquita's wallet, remember her Gucci wallet, the one that was missing in the office, has been found. Like, okay, the wallet is back in play. Let's go. So Chiquita's wallet is found on Gardere Lane in Baton Rouge. Now, Gardere, that street is located in a high crime area in the city. Now, there was a woman that found Chiquita's wallet on the 19th around 10:30 p.m. Okay. She said that she was driving down the street and her headlights glared up on the wallet. She stopped, went through the wallet, and noticed that it belonged to Chiquita Tate. The funny thing is that she recognized the name and the picture from the driver's license because Chiquita is one of her classmates. Go figure. Now, she said that she was going to actually call Chiquita and meet up with her and give her her wallet. But before she could even do that, when she turned on the TV the following morning and saw that Chiquita had been murdered, she immediately contacted the police to turn the wallet over. With this information, detectives now have a time frame of Chiquita's murder. I mean, where are the suspects? We need solid leads, right? We don't have any. And now Chiquita's wallet, when they go through the wallet, Chiquita's driver's license is still in there. Her credit cards are still in there. Her everything. So it brings the question, was the wallet planted there? I mean, was this a setup? It's just still so many questions as to what's going on, why, the wallet and all of that. So let's just keep going. It's now early March, and the crime lab results are back on the hairs that were found at the crime scene. The hairs that were found in Chiquita's palm. Well, come to find out, those hairs, they didn't belong. They're not human hair. They were fake. So they come from a wig or a weave. Now, with this information, the detectives are now saying, okay, Chiquita's killer had to have been a woman. Detectives begin to check Chiquita's female client list. And after they checked all of them cleared out. They didn't have any motive or any opportunity to do something like that to Chiquita. So we're still on the lookout. While checking on the client list of Chiquita's, something else weird happens, okay? The detectives actually receive an anonymous call stating that Chiquita was in a lesbian love triangle. And the caller said that the lover, Chiquita's lesbian lover, was the one that killed her. And the reason that the killer chose to kill Chiquita was because Chiquita wanted to break things off and the killer was upset about it. What? Another suspect. So detectives track down this young lady that is supposed to be Chiquita's lesbian lover. And when they sit down and question her, they find out that there was nothing more than a business relationship. Chiquita was actually hired by this young lady and her girlfriend on help with adopting a baby. Now, the detectives did a surprise visit to these ladies, so they had no idea that they were even coming. They didn't even have time to come up with a lie. And the detectives felt like their answers were genuine, honest, and, there just didn't even feel like there was any lies being told from them. Now, the detectives also noticed and asked the young ladies if they wore wigs or weaves, and it was obvious that neither one of those ladies wore wigs or weaves. They were completely natural. So, I mean, we're back at square one yet again. Like, why would someone call in to give that bogus story? Like, what would make you do that? Why would you call the police station of all places? Because you know that they're going to find you. They're going to find out, right? Well, that's exactly what happened. Detectives with a court order researched the number that called in and gave that bogus tip. Come to find out, that number was traced back to a woman by the name of Cassandra that lived in the Denton, Texas area. The name Amber was actually linked to the anonymous tip that was called in to detectives. Now, when the detectives asked Cassandra about an Amber, she said she had no idea who that was. But she did go on to say that her daughter usually has her phone and that her daughter may know who this Amber person is. Detectives decide to drive over to Texas to speak with Cassandra's daughter by the name of Serena. Now, Serena, she goes on to tell detectives that she has no idea of who this Amber person is. But another weird, funny thing happens. While Serena is talking with detectives, one of the detectives recognizes Serena's voice. And guess what? Serena is recognized as the voice that called in about the bogus tip. Imagine that. Imagine that. So now Serena finally admits that she called in to the detectives and made up this bogus story. Okay. And the detectives are like, okay, how do you even know Chiquita Tate? Serena goes on to say that Chiquita is her sister-in-law. Serena is Greg's sister. Like, why would you do that? Why would you call the detectives to create this bogus story? You know what? It's time for more questioning from Greg. As detectives are setting up another round of questioning for Greg, they receive notification that Greg has a warrant out for his arrest for domestic violence against Chiquita. So detectives finally get Greg in for another round of questioning. And the first thing they bring up is this warrant on him against domestic violence on Chiquita Tate. And Greg goes on to say, he would never hurt Chiquita. Those charges actually should have been dropped. This stems from an incident that happened in 2007. Okay. Now, with the report, or in the report that was made, Chiquita noted that Greg was very jealous, and every time that she had to work late, he would be outrageously upset and would accuse her of cheating on him. I mean, This is supposed to be her soulmate, right? So why would you even think that she would have eyes for someone else? Why are you so mad? Why are you so upset? It's like her profession calls for her to work late hours, right? So something's up with that. Greg's whole body language during this interview just detected that he was not being truthful, okay? Detectives brought up the fact that they noticed that Greg had a parking ticket that was on his vehicle that was stamped 8:23 p.m. on the 19th. Now that does coincide with what he said because he stated prior that he left around 8:30 p.m. that night. Now, with the information that the detectives had about Chiquita's wallet being found around 10:30 on Gardere Lane, that leaves kind of like a 2-hour window. And they asked Greg, what were you doing around that in that time frame, within that time frame? Greg doesn't really have an alibi, okay? As Greg is being pressed about his whereabouts during that 2-hour window frame, Greg is becoming agitated and he's aggressive toward the detectives. And again, his body language just, it just reeks of dishonesty. He's just not being honest about where did he go. So the detectives decided to tell Greg that they had a GPS on his vehicle and that there were cameras everywhere. And if they're going to see exactly what he did when he left Chiquita's office, and he might as well go ahead and tell the truth. Well, that little bit actually worked because Greg then changed his story from I left Chiquita's office and went straight home to, yeah, when I left Chiquita's office, I did go and meet up with my steroid supplier who just so happens to live right off Gardere Lane. Well, and this happened, on the night of the 19th. Go figure. Okay, so detectives were able to hold Greg in custody on those domestic violence charges against Chiquita. So while he was being held, they actually were able to get a subpoena and a search warrant to search Greg's vehicle as well as the couple's home. At the couple's home, the washer and dryer were swabbed and it did have blood residue on it. Now, there was a bottle of Clorox that had drops of blood on it. And there also was weave and a wig that were located up under the couple's bed. Now, inside of Greg's vehicle, there were a pair of sunglasses that were found, and the glasses had a combination of Greg and Chiquita's blood on it. It had on the lens as well as on the arm of the glasses. So, So, here's what really happened. Greg goes to Chiquita's office to talk to Chiquita about their marriage because Chiquita had already expressed to Greg that she wanted a divorce. Chiquita even had already signed a lease for an apartment and put down a deposit, so it was quite evident that they were done. Greg was so upset, he actually began to physically fight Chiquita. Chiquita trying to fight back, but he begins to stab Chiquita 43 times. Now with this, after she's dead, he plants the hair in her hand to make it seem as if a female would have killed her. He throws all the books around, throws all the files around, dumps out her purse to make it seem like a robbery, but he takes her wallet. When Greg leaves, he automatically drives to Gardere Lane and tosses the wallet in hopes that someone will find it and go ahead and use their credit cards and her identification. That way it'll seem more like a robbery. I mean, Greg had this set up from the beginning. He wanted Chiquita dead because if he couldn't have her, no one else could have her. Greg Harris is charged with second-degree murder. Y'all, this trial was a nail biter. Okay, I mean, the prosecution and the defense attorneys, I mean, I'll go more into detail on the trial and the tidbits of this case, but needless to say, on April the 9th of 2011, after 3 hours deliberation, Greg Harris was found guilty of manslaughter and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. So, I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about this case. I remember this case vividly. I mean, it was a case that affected everyone in the state, north and south. I live here in Louisiana, and I mean, she was a powerhouse attorney. She's very well known, and when this happened, it was a big deal. But to know that her husband did this to her, but from the beginning, you know, he acted like he didn't have anything to do with it. He even involved his sister over in Texas, which I'm like, why didn't she serve any time for that? I mean, you lied to throw everything out. It was just really crazy from, you know, from all angles. But make sure that you guys click your notifications so that way you'll be notified of when the tidbits video come up on this case. Make sure that you check out my other videos. You guys, thank you so much for checking this video out. So Southern signing off, and you guys be safe out there.